Zata is a fugitive, one of the monks who led a fight for democracy last fall in Burma, also known as Myanmar. When Burma's rulers, the military junta, cracked down on his movement, Zata fled to this small apartment in neighboring Thailand. It's become his safe haven and his prison. What would happen to you if you went back now?
My friends who know I'm on the border say, don't come back, because they are still hunting for you. If I went back to Burma, I'd be arrested.
Just arrested?
Arrest means beating, torture, starvation. Those things automatically follow.
Ashin Kovida is another monk who was hiding out in Thailand. Buddhist monks are all about kindness and love, and they're not political normally. Why did the monks start to lead the protests?
Since the time of Buddha, monks have relied on donations from the people, so they could see for themselves how oppression was making them poor.
For centuries, Burma's Buddhist monks have begun each day fanning out in long columns across the country, offering people the chance to pour food into their begging bowls. Those who donate aren't looking for thanks. They believe they'll be rewarded in the next life. But in recent years, the monks had noticed a drastic change.
We saw many children begging for food at our monastery, scavenging in the rubbish when they should be in school.
A third of Burma's children are malnourished. A tenth now die before their 5th birthday. All this in a country once known as Asia's rice bowl.
Why are the people so poor if our country is so rich in timber, jewels, and gas? It's the fault of the military dictatorship. That's why we try to topple the military regime.
It all started last summer, when the government suddenly stopped subsidizing the cost of fuel, and overnight it doubled, as did the price of food. So Buddhist monks, believers in non-violence, took on Burma's brutal military junta. You have a secret insurgency. The world is not used to seeing monks in this role as struggling against a military regime.
Although we use clandestine tactics, we never resort to violence or terrorism. Monks can only march and pray for peace.
The monks decided to stage a religious boycott. Their upturned begging bowls were a dramatic signal to the junta that they were refusing their donations. In effect, they were excommunicating the regime. Young monks like Gaudida, whom I met in Thailand, led the charge.
We demanded that the government reduce food prices, apologize for attacking the monks, have a dialogue with all of Burma's ethnic groups, and release all political prisoners like Aung San Suu Kyi. Those were our full demands.
Aung San Suu Kyi has been under house arrest for 12 of the last 18 years. Her crime? Winning Burma's last democratic elections in 1990. For one brief moment last September, she appeared at her door to greet the marching monks. What were you asking the people to do, the monks and the protesters?
I shouted, "Don't be afraid or you will die twice. Demand your rights, but follow the rules of peace and kindness."
When the soldiers began encircling the marchers, monks like Gaudita struggled to maintain their non-violent ways. Do you remember the words you used?
May all living beings live in happiness and peace, and stop torturing each other.
But those words fell on deaf ears. Gaudita was struck across the head with a rifle butt.
I tried to control myself because Buddha said if violence is used against you, don't respond with anger. Respond with love.
The soldiers responded with live fire.
When they shot into the crowd, I was speaking on the megaphone. And with real bullets flying around, what could we do? We all ran away.
You're a man of peace. Your whole religion is based on love. What did you feel when you saw fellow monks and fellow citizens dead in the streets after the crackdown?
When they started shooting, I wanted to cry, even though I've spent a lifetime meditating. That period was a nightmare, like a living hell.
Suddenly, the monks who were Burma's moral leaders became the regime's most wanted criminals. Did you disguise yourself?
I began wearing glasses. Then I started wearing a crucifix.
Gaudita also disguised himself as a ticket collector on a bus heading to the border. What would have happened to you if you were sent back to Burma?
I might have been finished. I might have been killed.
When we return, disaster strikes when Cyclone Nargis smashes into Burma. Buddha's warriors step into the breach. It's been nearly a year since Burma cracked down against its monks, many of whom fled here to the Thai border, where among the many Buddhist monuments I found a memorial to torture, run by Burmese political activist Bo Chi. He showed me what the regime was capable of.
This is intentionally used for punishment. So for the prisoners, if someone is committed...
Were you in prison?
Yeah, I myself spent in prison for 7 years and 3 months. I used to wear this for at least 2 times.
Really? Yeah, Bo Chi has been documenting those who were killed or arrested in last September's uprising.
He is a student, just only 15 years old. He was shot to death before his school. Also, that man, he is beaten to death.
Do you know how many people were killed?
We confirm 22 at least. So maybe we believe over 100 might be killed during the crackdowns.
On any given day, Burmese traders cross back and forth on this river, coming to sell their goods over here. This river is all that separates Thailand from the secretive world of Burma. Myanmar's military government has not responded to CNN's request for an interview. Because journalists are not welcome in Burma, we sent in an undercover team posing as tourists. We found a veil of secrecy had descended across the land. The same temples and monuments where the daily protests had begun are now shrouded in fear. None of the monks who had taken part would talk openly to us.
When evening came, so did the soldiers, and that's when many monks were brutally attacked. We have both young and old monks here, and we're afraid for their safety.
Despite the heavy hand of repression, the monks have vowed to continue their peaceful fight against the regime.
The traditional ties between the people and the monks compel us to continue the struggle. We will do it again.
Soon there'll be another eruption because the monks won't let their movement die. People are afraid of informers and arrest, but they'll protest again.
The regime maintains its state of fear by deploying these not-so-secret police agents. They record and photograph any unsanctioned political activity, like this rally by supporters of Aung San Suu Kyi. Protesters demand her release. Instead, the junta extended her detention and continued their iron grip. But there are still those who refuse to be intimidated.
My name is Lumo, Moustache Lumo. Yeah, my brother number one, Moustache Papale.
They're a comedy troupe called the Moustache Brothers. They lampoon the junta and they laugh at all they've suffered. This Moustache brother served 5 years of hard labor, and last September he was arrested again for marching with the monks.
Papale here, most wanted. Yeah, Papale most wanted. That's why Papale 3 times here and drop dead, gets law. Yeah.
But behind their antics, their message is serious.
We want freedom. Because our artists not freedom. Freedom of joke, freedom of right, freedom of worship. That's why I want real freedom.
But how to win freedom against a heavily armed military junta, prepared even to gun down its own people? How will you change the regime with its guns and its troops and its trucks?
Monks are imprisoned, tortured and killed. But now the whole world knows what's going on in Burma.
On May 3rd, a massive natural disaster exposed Burma's man-made tragedy. Cyclone Nargis killed more than 80,000 people. And for weeks, the regime blocked international aid from reaching the victims for fear that foreign intervention might trigger the junta's overthrow. When the waters receded, the Burmese military that was so quick to put down protests was nowhere to be seen. The first food and shelter for these desperate villagers came from the monks and from their monasteries. From his exile, monk Gaudita told us the military's misdeeds will come back to haunt them.
One day they will pay for what they have done, because Buddha said, whatever you do, good or bad, follows you. So bad karma will follow them.